It's your first gig ever. You and a couple of friends are about to take the stage at the local open mic night. You're feeling excited and a little anxious, but you're well prepared. This is the very moment you've been practicing for. The first song kicks off and things are going great. Verse, chorus. You're about to hit the bridge when all of a sudden your mind goes blank. What was the next chord again? Your fingers freeze up and panic sets in. You look up, frantically trying to meet eyes with one of your other bandmates, but they're locked in, focused on their own performance. What do you do? Well, I've definitely been there, and today I want to teach you 5 super handy skills that you can use to avoid a potentially embarrassing situation like this one. But first, I'm getting really close to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube, so if you're enjoying these videos and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to me. Skill number 1, delayed arrival. And what we're going to be doing here is just landing late on a chord change, which probably sounds like a mistake, right? But there's a trick to it. So when you are making a chord change, obviously the whole point is the band is locked in together, and when they change to a chord, they're doing it all at one time. But let's say you're not ready to hit that chord. You need an extra second to figure out what the chord is or to get your hand into position. Well, what you can do is you can land late on that chord as long as it is still rhythmically in time. So for example, if I were to play a chord progression and imagine that the whole band is playing along to this with me. There's another guitar player, there's a bass player, a piano player, and obviously a drummer as well. Okay, this is our chord progression. And what I can do is I can land late on each of those chords as long as I'm rhythmically in time. Now, obviously you don't want to leave huge gaps between each one, but it could sound something like this. It might even sound like you're doing it intentionally, as if it's some sort of creative choice. It's one of the things that we can kind of get away with as guitar players. The main thing here though, and this is going to be the same with all of these little skills that I suggest, is don't make too much of a habit of doing this just because you're lazy. Obviously, when you overuse this, it's just going to sound overdone and not that great. Skill number 2, the muted strum. Now, this is possibly the most useful, adaptable, and diverse skill that you can learn when it comes to making mistakes. And the reason is because with the guitar, we have the luxury of muting our strings and playing it like this, and it's still sounding cool, especially if you've got a little distortion or overdrive on your guitar. So what that means is if you don't know the next chord or the next part or what you're supposed to play next, instead of playing the wrong chord, which is by far the worst, most noticeable thing you can do for the audience, is just mute your strings and play them like that. You're still gonna be filling and taking up some of that same space. It's not like the guitar just magically dropped out, right? So it's gonna sound, again, like you're doing it a little bit intentionally, but filling that space with something is gonna sound a little bit better. You can even combine this with the first skill that we looked at, right? Where you're landing on that chord a little bit late. You can even add a muted strum in between 2 chord shapes that you're having trouble changing between. For example, if I were to play a C major chord and then go to a G major chord, let's say I'm not very good at making that transition quickly. Well, if I just kind of collapse my fingers as I'm changing chords, I can just add a muted strum in there. The main idea here is just to keep that rhythm going. So if we had a scenario like the one I described at the beginning of this video, and let's say you don't know what those bridge chords are, well, when you're all going to land on that chord, just mute your strings and keep on strumming. So let's say the chord progression of that bridge is this. And I don't know what that first chord is gonna be. When the time comes, I can go. It's gonna be way better than one, either not playing at all or playing the wrong chord, which is just the worst possible thing you can do because the audience will 100% notice if you play the wrong chord. Skill number 3, play through your mistakes. The first two skills we looked at are there to kind of help you avoid making the mistake altogether, to try and catch it before it actually happens. But the reality is that mistakes are gonna happen. You're gonna play a wrong note or you're gonna play a part improperly. What you wanna learn to do is not let everything come to a screeching halt as soon as something goes wrong. Because whether you're playing along to a track or you're playing along with a band and other musicians, well, they're not gonna stop for you. So what you need to learn how to do is when that mistake happens, you just carry on right through that mistake as if it didn't happen. A lot of the times, the mistakes that we notice as guitar players, the audience won't notice, and a lot of times even your bandmates won't even notice. So part of it comes down to some confidence, but a big part of it is just making sure that you're really locked in rhythmically with what the band is doing and with the part that you're playing. So if you do hit a wrong note or something goes wrong, it doesn't really matter that much because you're right on to the next beat, the next part, whatever's happening next, and you're moving on as if nothing happened. Don't linger on it, don't think about it. Again, mistakes happen. Even the best guitar players in the world, they do make mistakes. So as you're practicing or rehearsing for this potential performance, obviously it's a good idea to slow down and focus in on these problem areas, these areas you might get hung up. But make sure you're also working on this along to a metronome or along to the original song so that it doesn't let you off the hook and you have some experience so that if things do go wrong in your performance, you know how to handle it. Skill number 4, the power of improvisation. Now, a huge chunk of the videos on my channel are on this very skill. I think learning how to improvise is one of the best possible skills that you can have as a guitar player. And the whole reason it can be helpful when you're in a pinch is because if you can improvise along to any song, right? You basically can make up your own parts as you go. Well, you can use that to fill the gaps. Obviously, the best thing you can play is the actual part that's written. But if you do happen to forget, if you know how to improvise, you always have something to fall back on. And because you know how to improvise within a key, you have some knowledge of the fretboard, anything you play will at least fit. It might not be the right part, but it will fit and hopefully not sound like a mistake. Now, there is a ton that you can learn here. I do have a dedicated playlist of all of my improvisation lessons. I'll make sure to link it up in a card and I'll also link it in the description below. But what I would at least recommend working on and learning is one basic position. So that is a pentatonic / major minor scale shape and the basic chords inside of a key. So it's a little bit of music theory as well. But if you can learn one position, what I like to call the home base. So it's just the position 1 of the minor pentatonic scale, and I fill it out with the major minor scale notes. So take it from a 5 scale, turn it into a 7-note scale. I know I'm going very quickly here. That's the point. Like I said, tons of videos that will teach you how to do this on my channel. If you learn that one shape, and you know how to shift it into different keys, that's gonna give you at least enough to improvise on a very basic level. Like the rest of these skills, you don't wanna make a habit of this, but it's really nice to have in your back pocket if things do go wrong. Skill number 5, turn on autopilot. Now there's this concept that I call minimum viable performance. And what that means is, what is the absolute least I can do to still play the soul of the song? So that might mean instead of learning the solo exactly how it is, I learn a simplified version. Instead of learning the exact riff, I learn a simpler version and I learn all the chords underneath. Now, once I've done that, I'm still gonna learn all the detailed parts of the song, but if I get to a spot where I'm uncertain or I can't remember what to do, or I think it's gonna be a little bit too hard and I'm not feeling confident with it, I have something to fall back on, a more simplified version of the song. Because again, it's better to actually play something that fits the song and is from the same key than to totally screw up a part or play a wrong note or chord altogether. To be able to do this, you are gonna need to know a little bit of music theory, but just things like the major scale, chords, and keys. It's pretty simple stuff, and I have a video called Essential Music Theory Every Guitar Player Should Know that I will link in the description under reference videos if you do wanna check it out. From here, I think it'd be really helpful for you to watch my video on how to be a more confident guitar player. If you wanna watch it, I'm gonna put it up in the middle of the screen for you. Patreon and my guitar course are linked at the top of the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.